three connections with dead relatives that I'd like to tell you about. The first one, after I got out of the army, I was going out logging, and I had a situation where the pickup that took me out to Nass Camp had to pick up the person that I was replacing. That person was a guy with a broken arm, and he was sitting there up against a stump when we got there. And so I told the driver of the pickup, I said, he's going to die by the time we get back because the road is so bumpy. The bones will tear open all the arteries in his arm. So I said, I'll pull his arm and you reset the bone when I tell you to. So I put my knee into his armpit and I got his elbow and I pulled down really hard as I could. I said, okay, set it. And he pushed the bone in and lined it up as good as he could. And then we put 4 little sticks for splints around the outside of his arm after we taped it up. And then we taped up the 4 splints on the outside of his part that we taped up. And then I went out to the job, and the hook tender, he says, what took you so long? And I said, I had to help straighten that fellow's arm out, or else he would die by the time we got to the hospital. He says, that's not your job. You're supposed to come right out here, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I went to set the choker, and I looked up, and here he's standing on this tree that's a little bit higher than the others, but there was a tree down the way that covered his left arm so that he had to waggle both of his arms in order to make the whistle punk give the right signal to the donkey operator. And he could only see the right arm circling instead of both of them. That meant lower the cable. And so I didn't want to have him break my arm too. So I said, he can't see your other arm. And he says, just do your damn job. So I ran up the tree and I pushed him off the tree and he fell down. And he was hanging on to little branches as he fell. It was about 15 feet or so. And so then I thought, well, I went back and I set the choker and then I carried on doing my job without realizing every day he was trying to murder me. It was kind of comical when I thought back on it, because we'd hook up 2 logs to be hauled in, and there'd be little sticks flying in the air and coming down where we were working. The 2 of us were hook tenders. And so we'd run and get out of the way and they'd crash down and stuff. And then because I was green, about the 8th day, I guess, I was standing underneath. After I hooked up the logs, I jumped to the left and I was standing there and all of a sudden I heard, jump, asshole. So I jumped to the right and the 2.5-inch cable came slamming right into the ground. It would have cut me right in half. And so anyway, I thought it was my brother's voice. And I looked up and here was my uncle, Larry Morgan. His ghost was sitting on a stump and he smiled at me and then disappeared. And then I remembered Larry had got burned up in a trailer fire a couple of years before up at Nass Camp. Anyways, he managed to come back in time to save my life. And that was really an important thing for me anyways. So I have to tell somebody about it. Now, when I was fishing with my dad, I was driving the boat when we were going down to Johnson Straits, and he was having a rest in the bunk down below. And I went up the wrong canal. There's only about a mile apart, and the one to the left was a long canal as well, but it went up and ended up in a little tiny area where there was stumps and mud. And so I reversed the boat real hard. And that woke my dad up, and he came up and he says, what's going on? I said, I'm not sure. I must have gone somewhere I'm not supposed to. And he looked around and there was a little tiny cabin right up just below the trees. And he said, gee, there's a pretty little place. It was in the dark, but not really dark. It was a bright night anyways. And he says, when I die, I'm going to come back to this place. I like it. And I said, oh, okay. Anyways, he managed to get the boat turned around and drove all the way back down this long canal and turned left. And then about a mile later, we went up the right canal and ended up going to Johnson Straits. So a few years later, Dad passed away, and I never really thought about it, but when I was really tired, about 3 months after he died, I was really tired when I laid down, and that's when I usually have something strange happen. Anyway, I sort of like in a dream, I was flying over these hills and heading sort of from Hazelton, I was heading out to the left and also south. So I was ending up at that little canal where that little cabin was. Anyways, I came down and I sort of landed in front of the cabin, standing there. And then I walked up to the door and I knocked on the door. And I heard a voice, Jinan. In Indian, that means come in. And it was my dad's voice. So I walked in and he said, what took you so long? I said, I was just about ready to go. And I said, well, I only travel this way when I'm really, really tired. And I was finally really tired about something. So I was able to come down to see you. And we talked for a little while. And he was telling me a few things that were kind of important for my life, to not go hunting by myself, which I usually did from time to time. And so, anyways, we hugged and I said, well, goodbye, Dad. And he said, goodbye, son. And he walked out and never even opened the door, but there was a sort of a bright light there, and he walked through the bright light and was gone. And then I just was sitting there on the bunk bed and closed my eyes, and bingo, I woke up at home again. So that was the second experience that was rather strange. The last experience was with my older brother. When he died, he was, it was about a year later when I was sleeping, and again, I was doing something that made me so very tired that I was laying there. I went to sleep and I had this, what seems like a real dream, but I came to this hill and I saw this big backhoe digging a way through the hill, building a road of some sort. Anyways, I walked up to the side of it and I looked up, and here's my older brother driving this backhoe and gouging out the hill. And he looked down, he saw me, and then he shut the thing down and climbed down, and he said, hi, Ron. I said, hi, Marv. And we were laughing and talking. It was good to see him again. And then he says, are you dead too? I said, I hope not. And we both laughed. And he said, well, look at this. He said, now there's the sun there, and you don't look straight at the sun, but just to the right-hand edge of it, you'll just glance real fast. You'll see a little white sparkle light. He said, that's Earth. And so I kept my eyes shut and just glancing once in a while, and then till I got to the edge of the sun, and then opened my eyes, and there it was, a little bright sparkling light in the universe beyond, on the other side of the sun. And he told me, he said, Earth is over there on the opposite side of the sun, and we stay on the exact opposite side all the time. That's why nobody even knows this planet is here. And I said, oh, well, that's good news. I said, I think I got to get back now. And so then I just closed my eyes and blinked. I was back waking up at home in Burnaby. And it was really a strange thing. But I believe that's how people are able to travel in the future, just with their mind. I don't think that they have to use anything else.